Hi there, I am Wild Humphrey and they call me the Fact Master because I am faster than Google. I'll tell you all the things you never knew you didn't know, and whatever I tell you is from up here, and that's a fact. Now you think of all the kings and queens of England and Britain, certain ones will spring to mind. You might say Henry VIII, Henry II, Mary Queen of Scots, Elizabeth I. Some always stand out ahead of the rest, but one king that doesn't quite get the mention perhaps he deserves is James I. Now, James I, well, what a time he had. He was born on the 19th of June 1566, and his mother was Mary Queen of Scots and his father was Lord Darnley. Now, at the age of 1 year and 1 month, this baby James became King James VI of Scotland because his mother had been advised to abdicate the throne. Another way of describing it, you could say she was forced to abdicate in fear of her life and fled to England because the Scots had turned against her following the mysterious death of her husband, Lord Darnley, in which she was very strongly implicated. So this baby became a king, didn't know what it was. Now, like his mother, she became a queen before she was one, in fact before she was 1 month, but didn't go that well for her. Whereas James, well, he was looked after with all the best intentions, he got everything he ever needed, well educated, you name it, he got it. He never dreamed as he got older that he'd actually end up being King of England. But I was having a good time in Scotland. He played golf and ruled his country. Everything was going fine. At this time of his growing up, the English Queen was Elizabeth I, and during her reign, Mary Queen of Scots, James's mother, had taken refuge in England. But instead of getting help from her cousin, Queen Elizabeth, what she got was a head chopped off, and that happened in 1587 on the 8th of February. Virtually 20 years, almost to the day, of the death of Lord Darnley. Perhaps it was karma, who knows. But during all that time, James I in Scotland, he'd grown up by now. And he was well aware of what was going on with his mother. He really didn't know her. He'd never seen her, apart from when he was a baby, so I couldn't call it that. And didn't know much about her. What he did know was that she probably killed his father. So maybe that put him off trying to help her, because he didn't lift a sword to stop his own mother being beheaded. It just all happened while he stayed safely tucked away in Scotland, and he had no intentions of getting involved in that. Anyway, sometime later, he must have realised he was heir to the English throne, because his mother's cousin, Elizabeth I, had no children. She was unmarried, known as the Virgin Queen, Gloriana Elizabeth I. So when she died on the 24th of March 1603, heir to the throne was Scotland's James VI, so he was delighted. The Tudors dynasty was over, because James was a Stuart. So what does he do on that day? or rather the day after, he on his horse with all his men, galloping as fast as he could to reach London. He wanted the crown of England. On his way, he was so excited, he knighted quite a number of people for various things. Some say as many as 200 people were knighted by this new king. Now he was obviously trying to make a good impression, because the English, they weren't too fond of the Scots, and same the other way around. But now, all of a sudden, this king was James VI of Scotland, James I of England, and the first ever king of Great Britain. No one could believe it, especially him. Anyway, he arrived in London, thought, I'm not going back to Scotland, this is the place for me. And things started going okay. He wasn't a popular king because he was Scottish, is why. And there was an attempt within 2 years of taking the crown, there was an attempt on his life. And that happened to be when Guy Fawkes wanted to blow up the Houses of Parliament with the king in it, famously on November the 5th, 1605. And James was tipped off about this, so his men were waiting to catch Guy Fawkes, and they caught him on the midnight of the 5th of November 1605, dragged him up to see the king. Guy Fawkes gave his name in as Johnny Johnson. The king wasn't falling for that, and so what James did, he tortured Guy Fawkes himself. He wanted to be the king who saved Parliament, and this to him was a way of getting the English people on board, because he'd been struggling with that for some time. Anyway, he forced Guy Fawkes to confess, to give up the names of the other perpetrators, and what he did with Guy Fawkes, had him executed in 1606 on the 31st of January, along with 3 other guys. Now, Guy Fawkes wasn't actually the brains behind. Oh no, that was a guy called John Catesby, who was also caught and killed by the king's men. So he put down a plot to kill himself and end his parliament. And what else did he do as King of England? There was a few things actually. It was him who sent the Mayflower with the Pilgrims on their way to America in 1620. And they left the shores of England on the 6th of September, arrived in America 1st of November. What else he did? He introduced golf to the country. No one in England had ever played golf, didn't really know what it was, but he did. He played it a lot. And so, in fact, did his mother, Mary Queen of Scots. So he introduced golf, he sent the Mayflower with the Pilgrims on the way, and he also introduced what we today use as the King James I Bible. And that was first published during his reign on the 2nd of May 1611. And today we still use it. So he did quite a bit to James. He wasn't the strongest king, he wasn't a warrior, but he was the first king of Great Britain. He did eventually win the nation over, and he had a pretty good time. He lived right up until the 27th of March 1625, and when he died, his son became king, and his name was Charles I. Now, the country was certainly in for a shock once he took over, because he was the second Stuart and things went downhill rapidly. He was the king who had his head chopped off during the English Civil War, meaning that James I is the only king in history whose mother and son were put on trial, found guilty of treason and executed, by both of them having their heads chopped off. His mother was the White Queen, his son was the White King. So James I left quite a legacy, one way or another. He was the first king to bring these two countries together in relative calm, and that is a fact. Just a bit for you about James I. I'm Wild Humphrey. Thanks for watching this video. Please subscribe to my channel because I'll be back with much more, and that is a fact. In the meantime, take it easy.